Good evening, everyone. So, what we're going to talk about tonight is retouching and color grading. Now, if you've seen, I have another video where I go over the difference between RAW and JPEG. These are formats that you take pictures in. A JPEG usually applies almost like a set of contrasts and other modifications to the image to give you what it thinks is what you want. You can find these with things like Lightroom and things, these little packs that apply a fixed change to the image. And that's what happens with a JPEG image. Now, like I said, I've got a video, so I don't want to go too far into that tonight. But I want to talk about photo retouching. Now, when we retouch a photo, we're making subtle changes in some respects. In other respects, what we're doing is making something a little bit more to make the image pop. Color grading will set a mood and a tone for the image. So, what we're doing, and it depends on the type of image that you're going to do. So, if you're talking about retouching of a person, you might make changes to offset a distortion from a lens. If you've seen a fisheye lens, you know that the glass of the lens causes a distortion. All lenses have a bit of distortion to them. The manufacturer of the lens will create a distortion profile that if you're using something like Lightroom, you can apply that profile to Lightroom and get a more straight image, a less distorted image. But depending on how the lighting looks or the angle that the person's at, you might need to make some modifications. And another set of modifications is blemishes and imperfections. And I take the normal stance that if it's something that wouldn't be there on a normal day, such as a pimple, I remove it. If it's part of you, like a mole, something that's always there, if it is distracting, I may take it down just a little bit so it's not quite as prevalent. Otherwise, it's you. Why would I make a change to it? And when I say, is it distracting? That could be because of the lighting I used or the angle the shot was taken at, and not how it would look to somebody who's just walking up to you and talking to you. So, my goal in an image is to remove things that are transient and to make sure that you look the way you do when I'm looking at you. So, what we're going to look at tonight is we're going to start with this image here. This is Fort Ticonderoga in Ticonderoga, New York. This is obviously a winter image of the fort. And this is what a raw image looks like. There is so much information here and so many things that, uh, in a lot of ways, the human eye doesn't see, but the sensor does. But the image looks kind of flat. So the first thing we're going to do with this image is we're going to do a little retouching. Now I've just got the images laid out tonight because I didn't want to spend uh, or waste your time with me walking through all of the changes. So what you're looking at here is the retouched image. Now this is just a straight retouch. So you can see the before and here's the after. Everything looks sharper. It looks a little brighter. It's easier to see the fort and the outbuildings and things. You can see this little cannon right here, which of course is here, but you can see how much brighter if you look right here. We're going to look at this little guy right here, and I bring us up to the next picture. You can see how much brighter that cannon is. Also, this image was taken from Mount Defiance. It's almost a mile away. It was shot with a 300 millimeter lens. And even with that, you can see how much detail is still captured with the camera. I have to go into this much zoom and you can start to see the pixelation. But um, for long shots, cameras matter. I have another whole thing on what F means and the different lenses and things. But now what we're going to do, this is a winter shot. But as I look at this shot, and again, color grading and retouching are an art form within photography. One bit of photography is capturing the image and the composition to me. The other part of the photography is making sure that we capture the details and get the color grading and things like that correct. So different people will touch up the images in different ways. This retouch leads to the style of the photographer. And that's why it's important to get a feel for a photographer's style before you hire them so that you get an idea of what they're going to do with an image. Now, this is a landscape image and it's winter. So, what I decided to do was make it cooler, literally. So, by adding a little color grading here of just blue, you can see how much warmth was taken out of the image. Seems a little warm here, and yet now it seems more cool. It seems more like a winter scene. Would I apply this in all circumstances? Absolutely not. This works for this particular photograph in this environment. And this is what I was going for is I wanted this to seem cold. Got the snow on the ground, there's ice on the water. I wanted this to feel cold. So by adding a little color grading, I could take this original image that looks foggy and a little on the warm side, bring in the details so we can see everything a little more clearly, bring the colors up just a bit, and then overlay it with that blue. And if you'll notice, it doesn't really change the colors of anything here. My Canon's still sitting on a red base, but at the same time, it adds just a bit of blueness to it to make it a cooler shot. Now we can do the opposite. We can add a warmer tint to it, um, and a warmer tint, depending on what you're looking to do um, for a person, might be a good look. Again, when you're talking color grading, you also have to take into consideration clothing and makeup and the person's personality. You don't want to just apply a general purpose color grading, if you will, to everything. So let's take a look at the other portrait. This is also at Fort Ticonderoga. This was a demonstration. He was just getting ready to fire that black powder rifle. So this is what it looked like straight out of the camera. And then with just a bit of color grading, or sorry, with just a bit of retouch, you can see how much the colors pop. how there's now more detail to the grass, how it looks like the summer day that it was. Now, if you watch a movie and notice the way they do the colors, they usually do a double color to it. And that is they bring the shadows a little more to the blue and they bring the highlights a little bit more to the yellow. So it gives more warmth to flesh tones and makes the shadows a little cooler, a little more ominous. And if we do that here, we get this. There's the before and there's the after. And you can see that the grass has a little bit more blue color to it. Okay. And again, you can see how much detail there is in this image and how much I can zoom in on that particular image. This is what it looked like before and then the after. You get that blue in the grass. But if I wanted to make this more warm, let's say this was a fall shot and I wanted to make it a little more warm, I would definitely go this route. This is where we started. And this has a little bit more yellow to it, a little bit more orange to it. You'll notice it in the skin tones that everything just looks a little more warm, especially than the original image. Where we started, and that's where we ended. Now, for doing these types of photographs, when I'm at the fort and they've got reenactments and things going, which I love to go and take those images, I like to go with that cinematic bit because I think it adds a little bit more grit to the image, having that extra blue added in, and it brings a little bit more life to the skin tones with that blue as a backdrop to it. But again, photo retouching and color grading aren't simple out of the can type things. You can buy packages of different settings for Lightroom that you can then just apply to your images. But this is where the art comes in. This isn't a this always gets applied at 60, this gets applied at 10, this is a -5. You need to use your vision on that image, get it to look the way you want. So when you go to a photographer's website, you can see what their vision is and how they apply things to the image. So don't just look at one uh, series for a particular person or a particular wedding, for example, but look across multiple images to get a feel for what they do. And if you're noticing that everything seems to be done the same way, then they probably just have a cookie cutter approach. In their defense, if you're doing a wedding and you're doing several hundred photographs and the goal is to turn them around rapidly, it's limiting. The advantage of what I do, shooting boudoir and bodybuilding photography, is I don't have 100 images as the final product, and I'm not turning them around overnight. It takes me anywhere between 15 minutes and 1 hour to do the images. And part of that is me playing with the images to get that look that I want, the style that I want based off of what the person's preferences are, how they look, the outfit that they've got on, the bodybuilding suit if they've got that in place, their competition suit. But I wanna match the person and their personality. So it takes a little while to get that down, and then once I've got that, of course, it makes it a little easier. Now I know what the vision is for the rest of that particular shoot. So if you look at my pictures for a particular person, they're probably going to be along the same lines. But when you're looking from person to person, you're going to see subtle differences between the images because I'm tailoring the image to the person. But this is where photo retouching and color grading come in. And as you can see, this would not be a good usable image, in my opinion. It's okay. What I don't like about it is the fact that this image is, to me, very flat and seems kind of lifeless. And that's where retouching comes in so that we get that detail back in there and we bring a little pop to the picture. And then we just add a little bit more uh, to it by adding some style by using color grading. Every photographer's got their own style and their own preferences. So pick one that matches your aesthetic or see if they will match an aesthetic if you've got something in mind. But this is literally the style of a photographer is in the retouching and the color grading. So that's what I got for you this week. I hope this helps you choose a photographer for doing your session. And I hope you get out there and get yourself a session and get some beautiful memories captured on images for yourself, be it in an album or something big that you put on the wall, and celebrate yourself, your family, and your loved ones. And I will talk to you guys next week.